You pull into your driveway after a long drive, the sun catches your tires, they look gray, dusty, tired. You just spent $14 on that fancy spray bottle last month and somehow your tires already look like they belong on a junkyard sedan. Here is what nobody at the auto parts store wants you to admit. The blackest, longest-lasting tire treatment in America is something you can mix in a mason jar for less than $1, and it does not sling. It does not crack the rubber. It actually feeds the tire instead of starving it. The Amish families I spent time with in Holmes County, Ohio, have been using a version of this for over 100 years on their buggy wheels and farm equipment. The first time I watched an old man named Eli mix it up on his porch near Berlin, Ohio, I thought he was pulling my leg. He used 3 ingredients. Total cost, maybe 90 cents. His buggy tires were blacker than anything I had ever seen on a showroom floor. And if you already own a car, a truck, a trailer, or even an old tractor sitting in the barn, this works on every single one of them. You do not need a garage. You do not need fancy applicators. You just need what I am about to tell you, and a Saturday afternoon. Let me back up. Because to understand why this works, you have to understand why every bottle of tire shine you have ever bought was designed to fail. Walk down the auto care aisle at any big box store. Pick up any tire shine, read the back of the label. You will see one word over and over again, silicone, specifically dimethyl silicone oil. It looks beautiful for about 3 days. It sprays on glossy, it dries fast, it makes your tires look wet and new, then it slings off onto your fenders, your driveway, your pant legs. Within 2 weeks, your tires look worse than before you started. Within a month, the rubber underneath is drier than a desert bone. Here is the part that made me angry. A study out of Penn State Extension back in 2014 confirmed what tire manufacturers have known for decades. Silicone-based dressings actually pull the protective oils out of the rubber. They strip what is called the antiozonant layer. That is the waxy substance built into every tire that protects it from cracking, from UV damage, from oxygen exposure. Strip that layer and your tires age twice as fast. So you buy more tire shine. So you buy new tires sooner. 2 industries making money off the same lie. Now here is where it gets interesting. The Amish never bought into any of this. They could not, even if they wanted to. Their buggies roll on solid rubber or steel-banded rubber wheels that have to last for years on gravel, asphalt, salt, and sun. If a buggy tire cracks, that is a real problem. There is no AAA out there, so they had to figure out something that actually protects rubber. What Eli showed me on his porch that afternoon was 3 ingredients: pure castor oil, a small amount of beeswax, and a splash of pine tar. He warmed them together in an old enamel cup over a coal stove until they blended into something that looked like dark honey. Then he took a clean rag, dipped it, and wiped down the sidewall of his buggy wheel. The change was immediate. Not the wet plastic shine you get from a spray can. A deeper black, a matte, rich, almost leathery black. Like a brand new tire from the factory, but warmer somehow. He let me feel the rubber. It was supple, not greasy, not sticky, just alive. And here's the part the auto industry does not want you knowing. Castor oil is a natural plasticizer. It penetrates the rubber. It replaces the oils that UV and ozone strip out. The beeswax forms a microscopic shield over the surface that repels water but lets the rubber breathe. The pine tar, which the Amish have been distilling from their own woodlots since the 1700s, is loaded with natural antioxidants and gives that deep, dark color that lasts for weeks. I went home that night and made a batch in my kitchen. 2 tablespoons of castor oil from the drugstore, 1 teaspoon of beeswax pellets, half a teaspoon of pine tar, warmed in a glass jar sitting in a pan of hot water, stirred with a wooden stick. Total cost, with ingredients I can use again and again, came to about 90 cents per application. I wiped it on my pickup tires. That was 3 years ago. I have never bought a bottle of tire shine since. Now, if you already own a vehicle that has been driven through 10 winters of road salt and parked in the sun for years, you might be thinking, this is too late for me. Stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you. The Penn State study I mentioned earlier had a second finding that almost nobody talks about. Even tires that have started to show small surface cracks, what they call sidewall checking, can be partially restored if you put the right oils back into them within the first stages of degradation. Castor oil specifically has a molecular weight that allows it to migrate into the rubber matrix. It does not just sit on top, it goes in. So if you have an old car in the driveway, or a trailer that has been parked behind the barn for 2 summers, or even a riding mower with dried out tires, you can apply this mixture once a week for 3 weeks. Wipe it on heavy, let it sit overnight, wipe off any excess in the morning. By the 3rd week, those tires will look 10 years younger. The cracks that have not gone all the way through will start to close up as the rubber rehydrates. I did this on a 1987 Ford F-150 that had been sitting in my brother-in-law's field for 6 years. The tires were gray and crackled. After 3 applications, they were black, supple, and held air without losing a pound for the next 8 months. Now listen, what I just shared with you is one small piece of something much bigger. The same Amish families and homes in Lancaster counties have a whole system of buried home formulas, heating tricks that cut winter fuel bills by 60%, cooling methods that work without electricity in 90-degree heat, pantry preservation, pest control, off-grid water purification. I put the complete 3-volume collection together and called it the Complete Field Vault. There is a special limited time offer on it right now, linked in the description below. You can also scan the QR code on the screen. This is the rest of the buried archive you just got one taste of. But back to the tires, because I have not even told you the most important part yet. You see, the reason this hack works so well is not just the ingredients, it is the timing and the technique. And this is where most people who try natural tire dressings get it wrong and give up. Here's what you have to understand. Rubber is not a sealed material. It breathes, it expands when it heats up, it contracts when it cools. There is a window of about 30 minutes after you drive your car, when the tire is still warm to the touch but not hot, when the pores of the rubber are open and receptive. That is the moment to apply the mixture. Not on cold tires sitting in the garage, not on hot tires fresh off the highway, warm tires, open pores. Now, somebody benefited from you not knowing this. Think about it. If your tires looked factory new for 2 years instead of 2 weeks, how many bottles of $14 spray would Armor All sell? How many new tires would Goodyear sell? The American chemical detailing industry brings in over $4 billion a year. That number does not exist by accident. It exists because people like you and me have been trained to think we need a chemical solution for every problem on our vehicle. And it is not just marketing. There are old patents from the 1940s and 50s that describe natural rubber preservation formulas almost identical to what Eli showed me. Castor oil and pine derivatives. Then in the 60s, when petroleum-based silicones became cheaper to mass produce, the natural formulas just quietly disappeared from store shelves. They were not banned, they were not made illegal. They were just outcompeted by something cheaper to manufacture and more profitable to sell repeatedly. The Amish never noticed because they never participated. They kept making the old stuff in their own kitchens, on their own porches, the same way their grandfathers did. And while the rest of America was throwing away money on bottles that destroyed the very thing they were supposed to protect, families in Lancaster County were getting 15 and 20 years out of buggy wheels that should have cracked in 5. Now let me tell you what really sealed this for me, because I was still skeptical even after my own tires looked great. I drove out to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania in the spring of last year. I wanted to see if this was just a Holmes County thing or if it was widespread. I spent 3 days visiting workshops and harness makers, and in a small carriage shop just outside of Intercourse, I met a man whose family had been building buggies since the 1860s. He pulled out a leather-bound notebook. The pages were brittle and yellow. It was a workshop ledger his great-grandfather had kept, dated 1887. And inside, written in careful pencil, was a recipe for what they called wheel grease and rubber black. Castor oil, beeswax, pine tar, the exact same 3 ingredients. He told me his family had been making it the same way for 5 generations. He pointed to a buggy in the corner of the shop. The tires on it were 18 years old. They looked like they had rolled off the line last week. That notebook from 1887 is the document I was looking for. Proof that this knowledge existed long before silicone was even invented. Proof that what we have been sold for the last 60 years is not progress. It is regression dressed up in a shiny bottle. But here is the secret finale. The one piece I have been holding back. The The one thing that takes this from a good hack to something that will truly make your tires look factory black for the rest of their lives. It is one extra ingredient, and I almost missed it. When the harness maker handed me a copy of his great-grandfather's recipe, there was a small annotation in the margin. 3 words: add raw lanolin. Lanolin is the natural wax that comes from sheep's wool. It is what makes wool waterproof. It is the same substance shepherds have used on their hands for centuries to keep their skin from cracking. And when you add just half a teaspoon of raw lanolin to that castor oil and beeswax mixture, it does something remarkable. It creates a flexible, breathable, water-resistant film that bonds to the rubber on a molecular level. That film lasts not for weeks, not for months, for an entire season. Through rain, through snow, through the brutal summer sun. One application in the spring, one in the fall. That is it. Your tires stay deep black. They do not sling, they do not crack, they do not need anything else. You can buy raw lanolin online or at any farm supply store for about $8. That $8 will last you years. Years of factory black tires for less than the cost of 1 bottle of the spray you have been buying every month. So here is what you have: 2 tablespoons castor oil, 1 teaspoon beeswax pellets, half a teaspoon pine tar, half a teaspoon raw lanolin, warmed gently in a glass jar set inside a pan of hot water. Stirred with a wooden stick, applied to warm tires with a clean cotton rag, wiped down to a smooth finish. Done. What you just learned is not a trick. It is something that was taken from you, sold back to you in a worse form for 60 years, and quietly preserved by people who never stopped doing things the right way. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. Try this on 1 tire first. Just 1. Let it sit for a week, compare it to the other 3. Then come back here and tell me in the comments what you saw. And tell me this: when was the last time you bought a bottle of Tire Shine, and how much do you think you have spent on it over the last 10 years? Leave your number in the comments. I want to see it. Subscribe if you want to keep recovering what was taken, because next time I am going to show you the Amish method for treating leather seats and dashboards that uses 1 ingredient you already have in your kitchen and makes interior plastic look better than the day you drove the car off the lot. You will not find it in any detailing book, but it is sitting on a shelf in every Amish workshop I have ever walked into. I will see you there. Before you close this video and head out to the garage, let me give you some history that almost nobody talks about, because once you understand where this knowledge actually came from, you will never look at a bottle of Tire Shine the same way again. The castor oil tradition in carriage maintenance did not start in Pennsylvania. It started in the German Palatinate in the late 17th century, and it traveled across the Atlantic with the first Mennonite and Amish families who landed in Philadelphia between 1683 and 1737. William Penn personally invited these families to settle in his colony, and the records from the Germantown settlement, founded the 6th of October 1683 by Francis Daniel Pastorius and 13 Crefeld families, mention wagon maintenance practices that included what they called wagon fett, which translates loosely as wagon grease, but was actually a complex preparation of plant oils, animal tallow, and tree resin. The Pennsylvania State Archives in Harrisburg still hold ledger entries from the 1740s and 1750s, where Lancaster County farmers purchased castor beans by the bushel, not for medicine, not for cooking, but for pressing into oil that would coat wooden wheel rims and leather harness straps. Now think about that for a moment. These people were buying castor beans by the bushel in 1745. They were not buying them at the apothecary. They were buying them at the agricultural co-op, the same way you would buy seed corn or alfalfa today. Castor oil was a working material. It was infrastructure, and the reason they used it was not because it was traditional or because someone told them to. It was because they had tested it against linseed oil, against neatsfoot oil, against tallow, against pine pitch alone, and they had found that castor oil outlasted every alternative by a margin of 2 to 1, sometimes 3 to 1, on exposed wooden surfaces that took weather year-round. The reason castor oil wins is chemical, not magical. Castor oil is roughly 90% ricinoleic acid, and ricinoleic acid is one of the only fatty acids in the natural world that contains a hydroxyl group on its carbon chain. That hydroxyl group makes the molecule polar, which means it bonds to surfaces in a way that olive oil and sunflower oil and most other plant oils simply cannot. When you rub castor oil onto rubber, it does not just sit there waiting to evaporate. It actually anchors itself to the rubber polymer chains at a molecular level. That is why your tires will still look black 6 weeks later when you use this method. That is why the buggy wheels in Lancaster County still look black 6 months later when the carriage rolls past the white farmhouse on a Sunday morning. The beeswax matters too, and I want you to understand why. Because if you skip the beeswax or substitute paraffin from a hardware store, you will get a finish that looks decent for 3 days and then disappears. Beeswax has a melting point of about 144 degrees Fahrenheit, which means on a hot summer day when your tires are baking in the sun and the rubber surface temperature climbs to 130 or 140 degrees, the beeswax in your coating softens just enough to reflow into any micro cracks that have opened up since the last application. It is self-healing. Paraffin does not do this. Paraffin has a sharper melting curve and a different molecular structure, and it tends to either stay solid or pool and run. The Amish figured this out by trial and error over generations. They did not have differential scanning calorimeters. They had eyes and patience and the discipline to actually pay attention to what their materials were doing. Pine tar is the third leg of this stool, and pine tar has a history that goes back further than castor oil in Northern European carriage work. The Swedish Navy in the 17th century controlled most of the world's pine tar production, and pine tar was such a strategic commodity that wars were nearly fought over it. When the British Royal Navy needed pine tar for ship rigging and wooden hulls, they paid premium prices to merchants in Stockholm and Gothenburg. The same pine tar that waterproofed the masts of the HMS Victory at Trafalgar in 1805 is the pine tar that an Amish farmer in Lancaster County uses today to keep the wheels on his market wagon looking black and weatherproof. The recipe has not changed because the chemistry has not changed. Pine tar contains guaiacol and creosote compounds that penetrate deep into porous surfaces and act as natural preservatives against fungal growth and UV breakdown. When you put pine tar on rubber, those compounds work their way into the surface layer and protect the underlying material from ozone cracking, which is the single biggest cause of tire sidewall failure on vehicles that sit outdoors. Lanolin is the fourth ingredient, and lanolin is the secret that most people miss entirely. Raw lanolin, the kind that comes straight off a sheep's fleece before it has been washed and processed and refined into the white cream you see at the pharmacy, contains a complex mixture of cholesterol, esters, fatty alcohols, and natural antioxidants. Shepherds in the Cotswolds in England and shepherds in the Lake District noticed centuries ago that their hands stayed soft and crack-free even in winter, while other farmers had hands that split open every November. The lanolin was the reason, and when those shepherding traditions crossed into Pennsylvania with German and Swiss settlers, the lanolin found its way into wagon polish and harness oil because someone, somewhere, realized that if it kept human skin supple, it would keep leather and rubber supple too. Raw lanolin penetrates rubber and stays there. It does not wash off in rain. It does not bake off in sun. It just keeps doing its job. So when you blend these 4 ingredients together in the proportions I gave you, 2 tablespoons of castor oil to 1 teaspoon of beeswax to half a teaspoon of pine tar to half a teaspoon of lanolin, you are not making a folk remedy. You are making a precision coating that has been refined over 340 years of continuous field testing on the toughest wheels and the harshest weather conditions you can imagine. Lancaster County winters drop to 10 below zero with road salt and brine sprayed on every paved surface. Lancaster County summers climb to 95 degrees with humidity that would rot a leather belt in a week. And the buggy wheels just keep rolling, year after year, looking black, looking smooth, never cracking, never failing. Compare that to what happens when you spray a commercial silicone-based tire shine onto a hot tire in July. The silicone forms a glossy film that looks fantastic for about 48 hours. Then the UV breaks the silicone bonds, the film starts to flake, and worse, the silicone has actually displaced the natural waxes that the tire manufacturer built into the rubber compound specifically to protect against ozone cracking. Yes, you read that right. Tire manufacturers like Michelin and Bridgestone and Goodyear blend antiozonant waxes into the rubber itself. Those waxes are supposed to migrate slowly to the surface over the life of the tire, forming a renewable protective barrier. When you spray silicone shine on the tire, you actually wash away or chemically interfere with those antiozonant waxes, which means the tire that you are trying to make look pretty is actually aging faster because of what you are spraying on it. There is a man named Robert Ox who used to work as a chemist at a major tire manufacturer in Akron, Ohio. He retired in 2003 and gave several interviews in the mid-2000s where he openly discussed the antiozonant wax issue. He said, and I am paraphrasing because the original transcripts are hard to find now, that consumers who use silicone tire dressings frequently were seeing sidewall cracking appear at 4 years and 5 years on tires that should have lasted 8 to 10 years with normal care. His warnings were not loud, and they were not picked up by major automotive publications because major automotive publications run advertisements for those same tire shine products. The industry that sells you the spray bottle is the same industry that sells you the replacement tires when your sidewalls crack 3 years too early. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is just how the economics of the automotive aftermarket actually works. Now let me tell you about a Pennsylvania farmer named Amish Byler. I am changing his name slightly because the Amish do not generally appreciate being identified in public media, but the man is real, and I have stood in his workshop in eastern Lancaster County and watched him prepare this exact mixture in a cast iron pot over a wood stove. His workshop is on a back road off Route 340, and he has been building and maintaining carriage wheels for 51 years. He learned the trade from his father, who learned it from his grandfather, who learned it from a wheelwright in Berks County who started his apprenticeship in 1889. That is an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching from the late 19th century to right now, today, in 2024, with no break and no compromise. Amish charges $1,400 for a set of 4 carriage wheels, fully built, fully finished, with the rubber tread coating applied. Those wheels last 15 to 20 years of daily use. Do the math on that. He sells reliability. He sells longevity. He sells the kind of quality that has been completely engineered out of the consumer products you can buy at AutoZone or Walmart. When I asked Amos why he still uses the castor oil and pine tar mixture instead of buying something commercial, he laughed at me. He actually laughed, a quiet, polite laugh, and he said, "Why would I buy something that does not work as well as what I already have?" He said his grandfather used this on the rubber pads of carriage wheels in the 1930s when pneumatic rubber first started replacing iron tire bands, and the recipe transferred from leather harness work to rubber wheel work without any modification because the chemistry of leather and the chemistry of rubber respond to the same conditioning compounds in remarkably similar ways. Both materials are protein chains or polymer chains that need oil penetration, wax sealing, and antioxidant protection. The conditioning logic is the same whether you are treating a Clydesdale's harness in 1885 or a Goodyear Wrangler in 2024. I want to share with you a quote from a USDA Agricultural Extension Bulletin from 1923. The bulletin is titled Farm Wagon Maintenance and Care, and it was distributed free to farmers across the eastern United States. On page 17, the bulletin recommends, and I am reading this directly, a mixture of castor oil, beeswax, and pine resin for the preservation of rubber wagon tires and leather harness components, to be applied warm with a clean cloth at intervals of 1 to 3 months depending on use and weather exposure. That is a 1923 federal government publication telling farmers to use almost exactly the recipe I just gave you. Now ask yourself this, where did that recommendation go? Why did it disappear from the USDA Extension Service materials by the 1950s? What changed? What changed was the rise of the petrochemical industry after World War II. The same factories that had been producing aviation fuel and synthetic rubber for the war effort needed new consumer markets when the war ended. Silicone compounds, which were developed for military applications including waterproofing for ships and aircraft, suddenly needed civilian uses. Tire dressing was one of those uses. The first commercial silicone tire shine products appeared in the mid-1950s, and by the early 1960s they were being marketed aggressively through gas station chains and the new self-service car wash industry. The traditional castor oil recipes were quietly removed from agricultural publications because they were no longer politically convenient. There was no industry lobby pushing for them. There was no advertising budget behind them. They just faded into obscurity, kept alive only in small communities like the Amish and Old Order Mennonites who were not paying attention to the consumer marketing cycle. I want you to think about the cost angle for a minute. A bottle of commercial tire shine costs anywhere from $8 to $24 depending on the brand. The average car owner who uses tire shine applies it about once every 3 to 4 weeks, which means they go through roughly 1 bottle every 2 months. That is 6 bottles a year, somewhere between $48 and $144 annually, just to keep tires looking moderately black for 48 hours at a stretch. Over 10 years, that is between $480 and $1,440. For comparison, the ingredients to make this Amish recipe cost approximately the following at current 2024 prices. A 16-ounce bottle of cold-pressed castor oil from a reputable supplier runs about $12 and contains enough for roughly 40 applications. A 1-pound bag of beeswax pellets costs about $15 and contains enough for around 300 applications. A 4-ounce jar of pine tar costs about $10 and contains enough for 200 applications. A 4-ounce tub of raw lanolin costs about $14 and contains enough for 200 applications. Total upfront investment is around $51, and that will last you roughly 4 to 5 years of regular tire care. The annual cost works out to between $10 and $13. Compared to the commercial product, you are saving between $38 and $131 every single year, and you are getting a coating that lasts 5 to 10 times longer per application and actually protects the rubber instead of degrading it. That is the economic story, but the longevity story is even more important. Properly conditioned tire sidewalls can extend the usable life of a tire by 2 to 3 years compared to neglected or improperly treated sidewalls. The average set of 4-passenger car tires costs about $800 installed. If you extend the life of your tires by 25% through proper conditioning, you save another $200 per tire cycle, and a typical driver goes through 6 to 8 tire cycles in a lifetime of car ownership. That is $1,200 to $1,600 in additional savings on tire replacement alone, just from using a $51 set of ingredients that you mix yourself in a mason jar on your kitchen stove. Now, let me address some objections that I know are coming, because every time I show this recipe to someone for the first time, they have the same 3 questions. The first question is always, does this stuff smell? The honest answer is yes, it has a smell, but not a bad one. The pine tar gives it an earthy, woodsy aroma that reminds most people of a campfire or a barn in winter. The castor oil is nearly odorless. The beeswax has a faint honey scent. The lanolin smells slightly of sheep, which is a smell that people who have never been around sheep find unfamiliar but not unpleasant. After application, the smell fades within 24 hours and is undetectable from inside the cabin of your vehicle. Compare that to the chemical solvent smell of commercial tire shine, which makes your garage smell like a paint factory for 2 days. The second question is, will this stuff sling onto my paint? The answer is no, and this is one of the most important advantages of this method over commercial sprays. The reason commercial tire shine slings is because it is applied as a liquid that has not fully bonded to the rubber surface. When the wheel spins at 60 miles per hour, centrifugal force throws the unbonded liquid outward, and it lands on your quarter panels and rocker panels in those telltale brown streaks that you have to scrub off later with soap and clay bar. The Amish recipe does not sling because it is applied as a paste, worked into the rubber surface with a cloth, and then wiped down to a smooth, dry finish before you drive. There is no excess liquid sitting on the surface waiting to fly off. The coating is bonded into the rubber the moment it goes on. You can take the car straight onto the highway after application and nothing will move. The third question is, will this make my tires too slippery in wet conditions? This is a legitimate concern, and the answer is no, with one caveat. The coating bonds to the sidewalls, not to the tread. You apply this mixture only to the vertical sidewall surface of the tire, not to the treaded contact patch that touches the road. The tread surface should never be treated with anything, ever, for any reason, because anything you put on the tread will reduce grip and increase stopping distance. Commercial tire shine sprays often warn about this on the label, but people frequently ignore the warning and spray the whole tire, including the tread. With the Amish method, you are physically rubbing the paste onto a specific surface with a cloth, which makes it almost impossible to accidentally treat the tread. The application method itself prevents the safety problem. There is one more thing I want to mention before we wrap this up, and it is something that took me a long time to understand. The Amish are not opposed to technology in the simple way that outsiders often assume. They are opposed to technology that pulls people away from community, family, and self-reliance. A car would let a family member drive 30 miles to work and come home exhausted and disconnected from the household. A buggy keeps the family close to home and rooted in the local community. Commercial tire shine would create a dependency on a store-bought product made in a factory in some other state. A homemade castor oil paste keeps the knowledge inside the household and inside the community, where it can be passed down to the next generation. The technological choice is not arbitrary. It is philosophical, and it has economic and social consequences that ripple out through the entire community structure. When you make this paste in your kitchen and apply it to your tires in your driveway, you are participating in a small way in that same philosophy. You are choosing self-reliance over dependency. You are choosing knowledge over consumption. You are choosing a relationship with your vehicle that involves understanding and care, rather than a relationship that involves throwing money at the problem every time something needs attention. That is not nothing. That is actually a significant shift in how you relate to the physical objects in your life, and it tends to spread once you start. People who make their own tire dressing often start making their own leather conditioner, their own metal polish, their own wood wax, their own laundry soap. The reclamation of practical knowledge is contagious, and once you experience how much better the homemade version performs compared to the store-bought version, you start to question every other consumer product you have been buying for years. I want you to try something this weekend. Go to your kitchen, look at every cleaning product, every car care product, every household chemical you have under the sink or in the garage. Read the labels. Notice how many of them list ingredients you cannot pronounce. Notice how many of them have warnings about skin contact or ventilation. Notice how many of them are sold in plastic bottles that you throw away after one use. And then ask yourself, when did this become normal? When did we collectively decide that a healthy modern home should contain 40 different chemical products manufactured by 12 different multinational corporations, each one engineered to solve a problem that simpler methods solved better for centuries? The answer is roughly 1955 to 1975. That 20-year window is when the modern consumer chemical industry built itself, and it built itself by systematically erasing the older traditions that did the same jobs more effectively and more cheaply. The Amish kept those traditions alive because they were not paying attention to the marketing. They were not watching television commercials. They were not reading magazine ads. They were just doing what their fathers and grandfathers had done, refining it slightly when refinements proved useful, and ignoring the rest of the world's frantic insistence that everything had to be modernized. And now, here we are, in a moment when more and more people are starting to suspect that the modernization was not actually an improvement, that a lot of what we lost was worth keeping, that the old ways might have been right about more things than we gave them credit for. This tire shine recipe is one small example. There are hundreds of others. There are recipes for furniture polish that outperform every commercial product on the market and cost pennies to make. There are recipes for engine degreaser that work better than the toxic stuff in the orange bottles at the auto parts store. There are recipes for chrome polish that produce a deeper, longer-lasting shine than any name brand you can buy. The knowledge is out there. It survived. It just got pushed to the margins into communities that the broader culture mostly ignores or romanticizes without taking seriously. So make the paste, apply it to one tire, wait a week, compare it to the other 3, and then come back and tell me what you saw, because I genuinely want to know, and the comments on this video are going to be a resource for everybody else who is on the fence about trying this. Your experience matters. Your numbers matter. The brand of tire you have, the climate you live in, the road conditions you drive on, the exact proportions you used, All of it helps the next person who is wondering whether this is real or whether it is just another internet promise that does not deliver. I have shown you mine. I have done my own tires, my wife's car, my neighbor's truck, and an old Chevy work van that sits in a field next to my workshop and bakes in the sun 10 hours a day. Every single one of them looks better 6 weeks after application than commercial tire shine looks 24 hours after application. The proof is on the rubber. The proof is in the way the sidewalls look when you walk up to the vehicle on a Saturday morning and the tires are still deep black, still smooth, still protected, with no slung residue on the wheel wells and no chalky white film starting to form at the edges. Make it, use it, tell me what happened, and get ready for the next video. Because the leather and dashboard treatment I am going to show you is going to change how you think about interior detailing. In exactly the same way this tire treatment has changed how you think about exterior detailing. The same logic applies. The same Amish workshops produce the same kinds of solutions. The same one-ingredient kitchen staple that has been sitting in your pantry your whole life is about to become the most valuable thing you own for keeping your dashboard from cracking and your leather seats from drying out. I am not going to spoil it now, but I will tell you this. When you see what it is, you are going to slap your forehead and say, "Of course, why did nobody ever tell me this before?" And the answer is going to be the same answer it always is. Somebody made more money by not telling you. Somebody sold you a bottle of expensive chemical product instead. Somebody decided that your ignorance was their profit margin. We are done with that. We are reclaiming this knowledge one recipe at a time, one video at a time, one driveway at a time. Subscribe, share this with somebody who still buys tire shine in a plastic bottle, and I will see you in the next one.